good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed my pleasure to be here today with you all for Governance Week to talk on this very important topic of building agile governance structures for rapid technological change. Very, very important, particularly as we're in this AI summer, as we call it. And today we have with us three of our dynamic leaders who are going to speak, share their perspective on how governance must evolve to keep pace with this innovation, digital innovation and disruption. So Kamala would have mentioned their names earlier. Full biographies are available on the program agenda, but I will just give a brief overview just so that we could get things started a little bit quicker. Right, so our first panelist is Brian Imambaks, founder of Technovate NV in Suriname. Brian is a tech innovator and business coach who makes AI, AR, and automation practical and accessible, helping SMEs across industries transform bold ideas into real-world solutions. Our second panelist is Kristoff Pragg, Studio Operations Manager at Coded Arts. Kristoff has nearly a decade of experience leading grant-funded projects and scaling operations in the digital creative sector, particularly in video game development and export-led growth. Our third panelist is Shawn Clarke, General Manager of Amplia Communications Limited. He's a seasoned telecommunications executive with over 20 years of experience in the Caribbean, known for leading customer-first transformations through digital innovation and operational excellence. Right, so thank you folks for being here with us today. Let's kick off right away with, we'll start with Brian. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Brian Imambaks. I'm the founder of Technovate NV. And over the past year, I've really been in the trenches building AI agents, automation system, and augmented reality platforms across the Caribbean. And what I can tell you is this: during all of this, what I've done is that I can say that technology isn't the real problem. Old thinking and slow system, those are the real problem in this age. And we're moving in a world where technology evolves every 6 months. Actually it's kind of 3 months. Every 3 months you have new AI models that are coming out. So 6 months it's kind of pushing it, but yeah, 6 months. But if you look at governance systems, they are still operating as if it's 1995, and we're watching government and institution respond to AI, automation, deepfakes, and quantum computer with paper-based processes and decision cycles that takes around 12 to 24 months to complete. Right, and if your governance moves slower than the technology they're trying to regulate, you don't have governance. You have actually a bottleneck, and that is something we need to look into. So, if you look at agile governance structure, right, it's not anarchy. It's not deregulation. It's not saying move fast and break things. Agile governance is, in my opinion, is the ability to make fast, informed, and adaptive decision in the face of this rapid change without we losing accountability. So that needs to be very clear. In governance that a governance that learns, that iterates, those are governance that actually scales, right? Think of it as you're building a policy MVPs. So sorry about it's raining here. So if I'm not very clear, just let me know. So it's kind of like building a policy MVP for small tangible governance models that can evolve over time based, and it actually gives you real world feedback. So in our company, we've worked on deploying AI agents for small businesses in the healthcare sector, in customer service, in logistics, and And you know what? The tech always works. The barrier is almost always internal governance. Those are most likely the issues we're facing. Things like we need to wait for 4 signatures before we can test something. Another thing is that we don't have a policy for that, so we will revisit this the next quarter. And another thing is that who's responsible if the AI makes a wrong recommendation? What we've seen in the previous panel discussions, right? These are not tech problems. They are governance design problems, and that is what we need to look into. So we're starting. So we started helping teams build modular governance layer, and that is building clear risk boundaries, right, and a very good version control policy and a fast decision tree. So these are the 3 things that, in my opinion, needs to be implemented. And the result that you get out of this is that you get a faster adoption, a fewer surprises, and you get better outcomes, right? Let me give you 3 things that I've seen work over and over again. So one is, if you look at small, but one of the thing is we have to start small, but be visible. And that is create a policy sandbox. Don't let's stop debating and start innovating for 12 months, right? And you need to pilot this with limits. And the most important thing is to document every step of the way, right? And then after you do that, you scale. So the second thing is you should embed tech-savvy decision makers. So in your governing board, right? In your governing board, if your governing board doesn't include people who understand AI, automation, or cloud security, you're flying actually blind, and you need to build a multidisciplinary team in order to get this agile governance structure going. The other thing is create governance like you create software, and you should use it in sprints, use versioning, and also important feedback loop. That is so important in creating good governance. Just like your technology has version 1.0, you have version 1.2, your policy should evolve also like that. And that is how you innovate at the speed of technology innovating, right? So that is what I think you should do. So let me bring this closer to home in the Caribbean, and especially here in Suriname, where we have a massive opportunity, because we're not locking into massive legacy systems. We are leapfrogging right now, but we must build governance structure that are fast to support innovation, and also be flexible enough to absorb the shockwave that you will get, right? And also we need to have fair enough protection. Trust from the public. So when we have trust from the public, you can have a fair enough a system that is designed for the whole country and where everybody can contribute. So and what won't happen with what won't happen is that you won't be working in silos or communities that only meet once or two times a month, right? We should set up policy labs and public-private pilot programs across the whole sector. And so when we do this, here's the shift. Um, we need to stop seeing governance as something that slow things down and start designing it in something that unlocks momentum, but also in a safely manner. Because the future will not wait for us to feel ready, and the companies and countries that and the leaders out there who thrive, right? They will be the ones who govern like technologists. They will be fast, they will be feedback driven, and they will be relentlessly aligned to purpose. And so I will say, let's build governance that evolves as fast as tech oversees that. And we should stop reacting, and we should start building architects for the future. And with that, I want to thank you guys.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian. Really love the analogy of the policy to an MVP. Think of it as a policy MVP. And you're right. The tech is often not times the problem, but it's the governance. So if we
Correct.
can really keep pace with it, I think that's excellent. So thank you so much for all those practical tips. All right.
You're
So
welcome.
let me now move on. I'll ask for Kristoff Pragg of Coded Arts. So Kristoff, we're over to you to share your contribution.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry about the quality of the camera and the shading and or the light situation. So I guess I'll just have to work with it, improv as we go ahead. So I'm Kristoff Pragg, operations manager here at Coded Arts. So what we do is video game development, one of the very first in the Caribbean. So we're looking to pioneer and lead this industry in the Caribbean as an emerging industry for creatives. So in regards to thinking about Agile, another quote comes to mind, or adaptive quote, in that it says, in today's society and in today's business, you actually have to run to stay in the same place. And to get somewhere, you have to run twice as fast. Now, running twice as fast without structure, without stability, you'll fall. So that's where governance comes into place. And for me, I tend to think of it in two aspects. I think it in the operational agility and the strategic resilience. So in regards to more of the operational side, which I handle a lot for Coded Arts, I look at the policies. Now, regarding policies, rules and guidelines of how things are executed, how things take shape in the company. AI is generative. It utilizes all the information that it was built on, large learning language models. So that allows you to, in an instant, create policies that have been tried and tested, that are industry standard. And for me, for example, we're going through the OJT program right now, and part of that is being OSHA compliant. Now, for me, I have no knowledge of OSHA regulations beyond what legislation would say. So I would have to go out and look for a OSHA inspector or someone who is versed in HSE. Now, I can speed up that process by creating policies that are in alignment with what the law for OSHA and HSE has. So I can have some of these things check marked and allow for this HSE consultant to then come in and then have somewhere to start, somewhere rather than the ground, they can have one or two steps above. And these policies are created with the culture of Coded Arts in mind. Yes, the legal ramifications and the law would say something, but given how interactive that I have been utilizing AI, my primary go-to is ChatGPT. It understands me, it understands my company, it understands the culture that we're building, and culture is very important to us. And it allows for things to be shaped appropriately for whether it be the policy as well as the procedure. Now, in shaping those policies and procedures, you need to communicate these things. Now, we as professionals and management and leadership all know the impact that unclear or misunderstanding would have. Now, AI allows you to put that across so concisely, utilizing words that are appropriate for whom you are communicating this to. And then we can even go further in utilizing AI agents. that can distribute these things. So now instead of having to type it up, send it to email, AI agents can grab all of that, create it for you and say, hey, I've created this based on your instructions. Take a look over and you just click send. That's a major thing. And for me personally, I'm looking to structure one of the AI agents whereby I can give it information and it can discern if it is a task that I need to inform for myself or my management team, whether it's an idea that I want to start shaping, look into, and whether it is an update to our existing task. So I'm currently building that or looking into building that. I have actually a workshop that I have to attend very soon to get that going. So those are the operational aspects that I tend to deal with. Now, thinking of it from a strategic resilience point of view in terms of building corporate governance is where we need to have plan A, plan B, plan C. And that doesn't only necessarily mean for a negative, but also for a positive, because you may plan for the positive, you may plan for the negative. You have to be able to ensure that you have some guidelines of how you're going to act. Now, scenario planning, it is just amazing. It gives you option 1, it gives you option 2, and you just feed it the information or feed it what you think may happen, and it'll allow you to think outside the box, think back inside of the box, think on another box, and it just gives you so much options in terms of what it can generate based on, again, the information that it has learned from. Now, I spoke about the information that it learns from. Now, you have to also be very careful and do your own review and ensure that what is being given to you is factual, is relevant, because we all know the AI is still being developed. It has its biases because it learns from us, and we also have our biases. Now, in having those situations, those scenarios, you also want to ensure that everything is in alignment. You want to have your brand where what your brand says about your company. You want to have your actions as leadership, that what you say to your employees, what you say to your teammates are in alignment. Your actions are in alignment. So it is important for that these policies that you would have given out, that would have been generated, aligns with your culture. And that's a very important thing here, because we understand that the newer generations, I'm a millennial, but the newer generation, Generation Z, they view work differently. They have a lot more value for that work-life balance. So you have to ensure that the strategic aspect of what you're putting across, of what you're putting out there based on what generative AI is helping you build, is in alignment with what you see for yourself now and for what you see in your company in the future. And lastly is about continuously adding value to your company and utilizing AI to brainstorm, which is what I said previously in me building my own AI agent. Sometimes I'm heading home, I'm coming to the office, and I'll be like, hey, this is cool. How can we do this? For example, something called Gaussian splattering is where we use a LiDAR camera to take pictures around an object, and it develops it into a 3D model. Now, if we can get that perfect, that cuts our production time more than half. So asking AI, hey, tell me about this. Hey, can you look into how it is used? Hey, look at the hardware that I would need. These are the aspects that the research aspect of it that provides you with all this information now gives you that upper hand to be competitive both in your current situation and future. Because what I've seen, at least how I've programmed or how I've explained to my AI to respond to me, is don't just tell me what I'm asking. Give me a little bit more. Think and look of what is out there. Obviously, make sure it's factual, make sure it's relevant, give me the sources that I can look into it after personally. But it allows for thinking outside of the box and to create value more than what you have right now. So in closing, what I would like to say is that we have to ensure that we utilize generative AI, and hopefully the next step of AI, which is more to the actual aspect of what AI stands for in artificial intelligence, is using it in a very responsible way, but also knowing that the end decision lies with us and how we utilize this to build our companies, build our corporate governance, to lead our organizations into tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone.
Right. Thank you so much, Kristoff. Great contributions, a lot to consider in terms of, governance aspect of it and what you're trying to control, so to speak, or how we build a government structure to adapt to all of these circumstances that you're talking about, all the different uses that you highlighted, in terms of and particularly in the use of AI. So very grateful for your contributions. So now I'm going to move over to our final panelist. Shawn, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Janelle, and good evening all. Now, as Janelle mentioned in her introduction, I've spent the last 22 years in the telecommunication industry and fintech industry across the region. I've worked or served in many of the countries within the region. So I've built a wealth of experience, and sometimes I can speak to the similarities and some of the nuisance that exists within each of the Caribbean islands, especially as it relates to technology and adoption, right? So in contributing to this discussion, I think it's quite fitting. I recently attended the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago 32nd annual general meeting. And I remember there were two things that I took from the keynote speaker's address. One, he spoke about seeing the positive side of disruption and how, as leaders, are we enabling our team and organization to not only survive, but thrive through disruption. He also spoke about the rate or the adoption rate of certain technologies. How long did it take for some technologies to reach 100 million users? And Kristoff, you spoke about AI and ChatGPT in length, but I'm just going to give you some information here and then just to link it back to agile governance and how important it is in especially today's world. Electricity took 46 years to reach 100 million users. The landline, which some of the Gen Zs in this room may not have any experience of, took 75 years. Mobile phone, which most of us took 16 years. The internet, 7 years. Facebook, 4 years. Instagram, 2.5 years. And AI, such as ChatGPT, just 2 months. Let that sink in. 2 months. It took 2 months for ChatGPT to reach 100 million users. And that right there is why agile governance isn't optional anymore. It's essential. The curve, the adoption curve, the usage curve is no longer gradual. It is exponential. 2 months for 100 million users, that is something that we need to ensure that the governance keeps on top of. So when I was invited to be a panelist to discuss building agile governance structure for rapid technological change, that AmCham keynote immediately came to mind. I've worked, as I said, in the telecoms industry for over 20 years, and I remember launching GPRS in Jamaica. And for the non-techie and younger folks here, GPRS is what we used to connect to the mobile internet in the 90s. And I remember launching that in Jamaica and what it meant then and the type of capabilities it had then. I survived the dial-up era. Again, some of you Gen Z may not be able to relate to dial-up, but I survived that era. Now I manage Amplia, the only 100% local fiber network in Trinidad and Tobago. And trust me, governance in the dial-up era is not the governance we need in the fiber era, the smart homes era, the AI bots era, the ChatGPT era, and an era where customers, people like us, we're connecting to the internet at a rapid pace. The average speed now, or the entry-level speed for most fiber ISP or internet providers is around 100, 200, 300 megabits per second. Right? So let me keep it simple. Agile governance is the ability of leadership to respond quickly and effectively to change, especially technology change, while still upholding the accountability which Brian spoke to and the strategic focus. It's not about abandoning control, it's about evolving the control to keep pace with innovation, not slow it down. And you can see that there's Brian spoke about some of this in his presentation about how agile governance is to enable and evolve the control based on the pace of innovation, right? It's governance that is risk aware, digital fluent, and capable of saying yes faster than disruption can say hello. And if we should go back to the dial-up era in the 90s, wherein we were getting internet speed of max 56 kilobytes per second, that was great for checking email and for taking long naps while an internet page load. So fast forward into today, where fiber connection, we're talking about enabling 4K streaming, we're talking about AI automation, we're talking about online learning, and we're talking about being able to have a panel discussion with people across the region and across the world. We would not have been able to do this seamlessly in a dial-up era, but this is common in today's fiber world, right? So that lead didn't just need new infrastructures, it needed new governance. Why? Customers now expect to get installation immediately. They expect proactive support. So you find with the enablement of the technology, the expectations and demands of the consumers grow with it. And in that growth, we must have agile or governance centered around to be able to serve all within that ecosystem, all the stakeholders within that ecosystem. Technology like 5G and AI introduces new risk. We heard about the cybersecurity risk earlier. Privacy risk is another one. And then, as again, I'm referring to Brian because he touched on a lot of things that I think is relevant. Likewise, Kristoff, but what I call that a regulatory gray zone. We have a regulatory gray zone across the region wherein, because we operate so much in silo, or we're not as collaborative regionally as we need to, then it sort of creates this regulatory gray zone that we need to address. And innovation is no longer cyclical, right? It's continuous. You don't no longer have moving from GPRS to 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. It is growing exponentially. And we have to ensure that governance is adaptive and not reactive in this setting. Because again, if we allow the technology and the adoption of the technology to outpace the governance, there will be huge risk. Risk of data privacy, wherein data is now like oil and water, becoming more of a strategic asset. So we must ensure that there is governance to protect all within this ecosystem. We're only as agile as systems that enable us, right? And those systems, they are still catching up across the region. First, we need to be more fluent, or let me repeat that. We need more digital fluent or fluency at the board level. When you look across the region, some skill sets are more valuable for the board members to have today than, let's say yesterday. We need experience in technology. We need experience in data. We need experience in business intelligence, cybersecurity, etc. That's not a shot. It is a gap that I have noticed within working across the region and working with several boards and looking at it, I see that as a genuine gap. And it actually slows down smart decision. Governance should always be collaborative. Ideally, because we have tendency, as I said before, to work in silos. Ministries, regulators, agencies, they are not always aligned or not always synced. Meanwhile, tech doesn't wait on interagency memos or interagency meetings or board meetings to happen. So we need to ensure that we're aligned there. Most of the regulatory framework across the region are outdated, and these are not my words. According to the Caribbean ICT report 2025, 62% of organizations within the region say regulatory lag is a major barrier to AI adoption. right? So we need to ensure that regulatory framework are updated or continuously updated, as mentioned. And in the context of telecoms operator like Amplia, agile governance means empowering teams to roll out new digital platforms, respond to cybersecurity threats, and not just in pricing models without waiting 6 months or 6 approval cycles before that is done. It means aligning risk oversight with the pace of innovation. So where do we go from here? We need to embed digital KPIs at the board level, not just talk about profit and loss at the board level and board level meetings. We need to ensure that digital resilience and customer satisfactions are agenda items at the board level. We need to adopt what they call governance sprints. This is fast, focus reviews for fast-moving tech decisions. Making customer experience and governance issue not just a service one. So we need to make be talking about at the board level, improving AI adoption and stuff like that, and not just at the management layer. We need to have more cross collaboration within the region because tech does not care about jurisdiction lines. We just need to ensure that we take the learnings across the region, we collaborate, we integrate across the region to ensure that we are getting the best of both worlds. So agile governance is not about chasing trends. It's about building our resilient system so we can lead through disruption rather than being disrupted by it. And if you take nothing away from what I've said, remember this: the world is now moving at fiber speed. Governance has to keep up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Certainly appreciate that. I think from hearing from all three of you all, we could certainly say that things aren't the same as they used to be. And that underscores the importance of agility in today's environment. Certainly the statistics you shared absolutely make a good case for that. So thank you very much for sharing that. Also appreciated the comment about, embedding the KPIs, the digital KPIs and customer experience KPIs at the board level, the need for digital fluency at that level as well, and most importantly, collaboration. So all great contributions. So thank you so much to you all for sharing that. Now what I want to do is open up the floor for, the three of you all to share your thoughts on what each other might have mentioned, share some of your experiences that might have intersected, any comments, that you would like to share. Feel free. Now's the time.
Well, if I may, Janelle, so I'd like to maybe start with Kristoff referencing the ChatGPT and how that is shaping things appropriately. I think when you look at it in an organization like ours, where data again becomes king, we have to be very aware of how much we input into those AI algorithms. There was a discussion on the earlier panel talking about garbage in, garbage out, and stuff like that. But in today's age, where information is probably the most important asset across any organization, I think there has to be some governance around internally. How do we use AI? Because let's say today I input my strategic plan into AI and AI into ChatGPT and say, hey, tell me what I need to do, how I need to do, or tell me something. And then that gets into the hand of somebody else, right? How is it that Amplia, the board at Amplia is going to hold me accountable now, because there is no guidance around the use of AI tools like ChatGPT. And this is where the agility comes in. This is where we need to be sprinting, because this didn't come about yesterday. We have been hearing about it. We have been using it. All of us use it. But are we, and when I say we, it's not we Amplia the company, but are we as in the region slow in making the necessary policies and procedures to guide, especially our employee use of these tools? Because we don't want certain information to be inputted, uploaded anywhere, because we don't know whose hands it's going to get into. So that's a space Whereas a leader like me, I need to take action in ensuring that there is actually some framework around how we manage and how we use that, especially when it comes to company data and company information.
Thank you,
Janelle,
Shawn.
if I may, I really can't resist. I want to ask Shawn this question because I think it's the elephant in the room. Everyone has made it very clear that we cannot slow down the adoption of AI. It's already way gone, and if we want to be able to survive because of how much it is. But I think that guidance that you shared just now in terms of Kristoff using ChatGPT is an excellent one for us to actually unravel. We don't have the policies in place just yet. What would you say is the governance response? Because you do have employees using these AI systems. So yes,
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
raising my hand to tell you that I am one of those employees, not to cut you, sorry. Right. But Kanga, you're right in terms of we cannot slow down the adoption, because if we do that, we'll be in a sense shooting ourselves in the foot, if I can use those terms, right? Because like Kristoff, my experience in using ChatGPT has been mostly positive. It still requires the end user to do some amount of validation, some amount of triple checking, some amount of additional work. And I do encourage my not just my management staff, but I do encourage my company to use ChatGPT. Now, there needs to be some amount of what's the word? Self-governance or self-awareness in terms of what am I inputting? How much of the confidential data information am I inputting? What exactly am I inputting? So if it's even to create some workshop around guidance, I'm going to create a guidance. There's no policy in place today. However, we're going to get some expert to come in and we're going to talk about some guidance in the use or the proper ethical use, if I may say that, of these AI solutions like ChatGPT. Some of the risk of what you enter. And as Kristoff mentioned, over time, it learns your bias. It learns your pattern. It learns you. And in sometimes it defeats the purpose, because I use ChatGPT mostly to, I'm going to use simplified words, soften my tone, right? And over time, unless I make it clear that I want you to soften my tone on this, sometimes when I input a request or command, when I read it, it sounds like me, not a softened tone that the end user could read and appreciate a softened tone. It just reads me, right?
Yes.
So over time, like anything else, you too, the user have to learn. You too, the user have to adopt and ensure that
sometimes that I wanted to just unwrap from what you have said. I want people in the room to really hear this clearly. This issue of self-management, or if we want to say self-governance or self-censorship when it comes to using the AI, because we all have to use it in the absence of policy. And I like that Kristoff gave us that example of how he uses ChatGPT, the fact that it's being managed in such a way that it understands the culture of the organization and recognize that it also picks up your bias. So Shawn, it's almost like persons need to recognize what is the data that is sensitive to your organization. Right. What are the things that you can put in from what you can't? What is something that you would easily just publish on the internet and allow everyone to see? Right? So those are the things that we need to look at. But Brian, I wanted to ask you, and Janelle, forgive me, but I really wanted to ask Brian this question.
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
Brian, you were suggesting that there is a way that your team was building out these governance layers so that we don't have this issue of, there's no policy, so let's revisit it next quarter, or let's not make a decision because we don't know who would be responsible if the AI decision is wrong. So you were saying that there were to be 3 layers, I think, and I captured the first 2, which was that you must start small but be visible, so like a policy sandbox. Then you spoke about embedding the technology savvy decision making, right? Which means that your board needs to also learn the AI, because they'd be flying blind otherwise if they don't understand how to make decisions that supports the use of the technology. But I wasn't sure what the third layer was. And the final thing I had was ensure that you use versioning in your feedback loop, so that you don't set a policy and leave it in place, but recognize the need for constant change because it's an agile system.
Correct, correct. So governance is something if you look at it specifically as a document that you have, that you create specific rules and regulations, it's a living system just like we are living, and we should every day iterate on that, right? As in, hey, what happened today? What are the mishaps that happened today? Take the learning, like have every day a stand-up meeting with your team, with your staff, and say, okay, how much of you guys has been using ChatGPT? What are the issues you're facing right now? And list it down, and use AI to generate policies. So that's the great thing about AI. You can use it in your advantage. So we can use it to create governance structure. We can use it to create rules and regulation. And the great thing is about us human beings is that we have a brain, right? So AI is dependent on information we feed into it, but it cannot take away our creativity as human being. And that is what we should use in our advantage in combination with AI, because AI has all the data combined of 8 billion people around or on Earth. We as a human, we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know, right? So, and AI helps us with that information. So combined with AI information and what we know with our basic knowledge. And I always like to go back to the basics, like go back to the basic as in, hey, how does things work? How does it work? And a simple way is, how many people in here, they created an account on ChatGPT and read the policy? That's one. Have you read the policy? Nobody does that. They just do that and accept and they're done, right? Nobody reads it. And then after that, everybody seems to have a problem with their privacy and everything, but hey, you didn't read the document. So there is a technology statement, RTFM, right? Read the fantastic document. We should always do that. and yeah, so once we do that, the next thing is, how is the design of the interface? So how many people in here has clicked in the settings of ChatGPT and walked through every settings of ChatGPT? I bet 90% of us didn't do that. There is a button in ChatGPT that you can press and say, hey, don't use my data for learning. So that's the first step into starting to let AI don't use your data to
So
learn.
I have a question on that, Brian. If we are using the data though, and you want to train it the way Kristoff said, that it should understand your culture, so it's getting better and better for you.
Correct.
So you tell that I didn't go through to click those buttons either, right? So if you say my data for learning, then does that mean that it does not learn your internal data and keep it as well?
Correct. So there is another prompt, and that is something we teach in our workshop. Is right now ChatGPT has a memory system, right? And you can tell it, hey, use this. This is information that you can use for public. So it understands that. So that part of the information you're feeding into ChatGPT, it takes it and it learns so that other people can have value out of it. And coming back to nobody clicking in the settings and use my data to learn, right? That is where it goes wrong in every organization and every person that is using AI. Because if you don't do that, what happens is if I know your company name, if I know your email address, if I know your any little things about your organization, I can write a prompt that extract that data from ChatGPT, and I can like spy on your company. So that is very important to let me state that clearly. You guys need to remove that from the settings, and don't use company data like you're having financial data and that sort of things. Don't put it into ChatGPT. There are ways to do that, and the way you do that is you create a own server environment where you can download the local LLMs, right? And build upon that. That's the safest way to use AI in a company. So it is contained within your company with your own data. That is how we set up agents for companies we work for. So those are things that I want to state. And to answer your first question, the third point was creating governance like you create software. So it's like repeatedly iterating over your governance so that at the end of the day, you know, hey, the things the mistakes we've made, I don't like to call it mistakes, but the mistakes we make, right, learn out of it. And the faster you make mistakes, the faster you learn, the faster you get better in creating better governance structure. So that is how you should do it. And start small. Don't try to do everything at the same time. Like go into your business unit. Like if you have a financial, every company has that. Go into that business unit and talk about, hey, are you using AI? Are you using ChatGPT? How are you using ChatGPT? Okay, what are you feeding into ChatGPT? And so forth. And write it down and list and have a meeting with the team and brainstorm, write it on a board. Okay, these are the risks we think that can occur if we use ChatGPT this way. And then you create governance on that. So it's those small bite-sized chunks that you can implement right now in your company to have better governance. And I think, yeah, so that's what I want to say about it.
Yes, thanks so much, Brian. Kamala, does that answer your question?
It
Yes.
certainly helped a lot. It raised some more questions, but
Yes. Let's give Shawn. Shawn has his hand up. So let's
Yes.
give Shawn a chance and then we will jump back.
Right. So thanks, Janelle. And Brian, I am just I think hearing you talk about especially the LMM or the creative agents for organization. The first time I was introduced to that as much as I'm in this field and AI field was that same AmCham AGM the other day when the keynote speaker spoke about developing or adopting a on-prem, let's call it that, ChatGPT that does the same thing as ChatGPT, but it's on-prem. Now, in hearing your presentation and hearing what you just presented, I now understand how that was achieved. And that is something that I will definitely look into because it does offer the same, let's call it solution or the same possibility with the open AI, but it just keeps your data locally so you can manage it there. So, but that was a very good point, and I have made some notes and I'll be looking into that.
Great. Awesome.
Thanks, Shawn. So, Kristoff, let's jump to you.
Hi. Yeah, so to touch on something Brian said, so I deal with more operations and formalities and stuff like that within Coded Arts. And as we are a creative company, my creative director, we always have not a disagreement, but always a push and pull in terms of how things are put across. Because I would utilize ChatGPT and other generative AI to create drafts and everything. And then he'd say, well, Kristoff, this doesn't sound like us. We have to retain the vision and the culture and who we are as a company. And it really cannot, at least for now, it cannot be that it doesn't have that human spirit. It doesn't have that soul and it doesn't have that passion that would portray your brand. And that really gives a unique aspect. And it made me remember former Google CEO Eric Schmidt said that you're not going to lose your job to AI, at least not for now, but you're going to lose your job to somebody who knows how to utilize AI, because it is a tool at the end of the day. You know, I was a podcast that I was listening to, the gentleman said that his son got into trouble at school because his teacher realized he's using AI, but she didn't understand how, and he was passing all of his exams and all of his tests and everything. So he spoke to his son, are you cheating? No, Dad, you told me everything can be utilized as a tool. And when I heard that, I'm currently doing my master's. I now utilize AI to help me generate lessons plans, questions, quizzes, and that's how I'm passing my exams. So you have to understand it is a tool. And one last thing with regards to what Brian said, you know, a lot of us don't read the terms of service. Get the terms of service, download it. I wouldn't read it. You know what I'll do, Brian? I'll put it into Notebook LM, that's Google, and create a podcast and just listen to it for 15, 20 minutes, and you'll know everything that needs to be known.
Great.
Yes,
Sounds
exactly.
sounds good stuff. Kamla, you had something you wanted to share or another question?
So actually, Janelle, I'd like you to go to the chat because there are a couple comments there. You could start with Gail Alex Solomon.
Right. So let me just read out what Gail has here. So the challenge when you leave it up to everyone to decide on what is appropriate usage of AI for themselves is that there is no established and accepted standard heightening risks.
I think that's a valid point. What does the panel have to say in response to that?
Because if I may come, Janelle, right? And when I listened to the question that you asked earlier, Kamala, of Brian, in terms of along that line, like creating that, let's call it that internal, leaving it up to the individual as game framed it, right? It is, while that will heighten the risk, I still think something is better than nothing, right? So you create some guideline, you have the training, like what Brian and his team of other professional offers. You have the training, so you equip them with enough knowledge, enough information to understand and appreciate the risk. You give them the knowledge, and now there is a button in ChatGPT that you can check or uncheck that says, hey, keep my information local. You create that local or agent type based solution. So in that, sometimes even though you're leaving it up to them, sometimes you have to save us from ourselves by still creating clear guidelines around, hey, these are the expectations. And then in the same system, you have to think about accountability and how do you keep people accountable? Because if there's no clear policy, what are you telling me? There's no policy around this. There's no guidelines around this. So it is even to establish some internal guidelines or internal gatekeeping just to tighten that a little bit, I think will help. But still, half a bread is better than none. I hope that answers your question somewhat, Gail.
Yes, well, actually, Gail has her hand up. So if I could invite Gail to unmute her mic and possibly turn on camera as well, if you would like. And feel free to share your thoughts.
Definitely, I will not turn on my camera, but thank you for the invite.
No
I'm currently not 100%, so sorry about my voice and everything. But I mean, again, as always, CCGI, thank you for this opportunity. It is always engaging, enlightening, everything that you could think that it could be. But just a little challenge or little scenario to throw out to the panelists in particular. I mean, we've talked quite a lot about the reality of the situation that we exist in as it relates to AI and governance. But believe it or not, there are still organizations, especially smaller organizations, that are more afraid, if I could use that word, of the technology and the possibilities than they are adoptive of them. And by that, what I mean is you actually have organizations that will simply say, you're not allowed to use AI. They will block maybe Google Gemini, they will block ChatGPT, and they will literally just not allow employees to use it, rather than, hey, let's just try to understand that this thing is happening, whether we like it or not. And, we really should get a foot in the game. And Brian, you gave a quite practical tip there, literally involving your employees in how do we want to shape this thing? Because as Kamala said, people are using it. Let's not fool ourselves. People are using it at all levels of the organization. And Kristoff, I relate to you. I used it in my MBA recently as well. And at first I was very afraid because I didn't know what rules the university had against or in favor of using AI. Because all you ever hear is, don't use AI because you'll get caught. And so there's a pervasive, in my view, a pervasive fear still in organizations, especially where it's concerned. And so my challenge to each of the panelists is just to maybe touch a little bit on how can we overcome that.
And as people think about it, I'm wondering, based on also something that prompted this idea from something Brian shared. So in the same way that we have these 5-minute or 15-minute stand-up meetings with management team to review and see what lessons learned, given that the environment allows directors to connect remotely so easily, is it possible to have a version of that meeting for our boardroom so that directors can review policies on an ongoing basis that allows them to also learn because they see what changes are happening and therefore engage in better decision making?
Yeah. Brian?
So so let me try to answer the first question, and the challenge is, I would say AI is, and I've listened to the previous session, and all of them were talking about fire, right? And I want to bring that into this discussion also. So see it as fire. If you were the first person that discovered fire, right? What would you do? You would go and touch it, right? You want to feel it. You maybe want to walk into it. And what I want to say is that everything that men created, there wasn't a policy of anything. Policy is something that came after. After you get burned, you wrote it down, hey, I should not walk into fire because I will get burned, right? So that is, and that's the same analogy I have, fail fast, then you learn fast. And then if you do that, you will able to build agile governance for your company, for the government, for any type of situation. So that is how I would tackle it and how I would introduce it. So every person in every company is using AI, and for small companies that are scared to use AI, I don't know if it's hard to say it, but give it 2 years, they won't exist anymore. So it's the hard truth. If you're not using AI today, then you won't exist after 2 years. So those small companies that are scared of using it, they won't exist. So you should adopt AI as a tool, like it's a hammer, because hey, if you have a hammer, right, you can do two things with it. You can build a house, you can break a house, or you can kill somebody with it. So there are a lot of implementation with AI, and also the danger of AI is like cybersecurity. You can write better phishing email, right? And even hidden prompts in your mail if you're using AI. So those are things that we are looking into right now, because what we've seen is that inside your mailing, what people does is that they send hidden text that you cannot read because it's your email program is mostly have a white background, right? So they write the text with white text, with white color, and you cannot read it, but it implicitly sends a signal to, if you're using AI, to prompt the AI to do something for them. So those are cybersecurity threats within the AI space that we need to look at. And talking about this, I forgot everything about what Kamala was asking, because yes, yeah. So
That's quite okay.
yeah. So if you can give me a heads up of what the question was again.
It was almost a rhetorical question, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it really was a suggestion that maybe directors need to have a virtual stand-up huddle
Yeah.
more regularly than their board meetings to review the policies based on the feedback that's happening from their management team because of the rapid flow of change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So based on that, there are a lot of tools that you can use right now out of the box to do a virtual stand-up meetings. Like you can create a dashboard using Lovable, right? With just a prompt, just saying, hey, build a dashboard using all my WhatsApp feed, my Teams feed, all my Zoom recordings, every conversation that is happening in your company. Build a dashboard for me and make a summary of what people are talking about, so that maybe you're on the board, and you know some members of the board don't want to go and talk to the lower class, like they think it's, hey, I have status and I don't want to talk with the janitor, right? But you can use those tools to help you make better decisions and create a virtual stand-up. So those are things that you can implement today, and you don't have a big budget. You don't need a big budget to do that. It's just a single prompt you put into Lovable and it's done. It's like that.
I can't get over the name. It's lovely.
Hello,
Okay.
Right.
good
I
afternoon.
see Sean's hand up, but I also, Janelle, wanted you to ask Edward Millington. So, Sean, if it's okay, I know you may want to respond to something that Brian just said, but Edward had shared quite a bit in the chat, and I think it might just be easier to have him just
Yes.
unmute with us quickly.
Yes.
Hi,
Edward.
forgive me. I was so extremely mobile actually in the car trying to listen to this here. So I want to keep back anyone and outpouring, not the computer. But it's a wonderful question that the person asked, especially for small companies. And I forget who the speaker was. I myself came up in telecoms and
Alex
internet
Solomon.
service. I was someone that came up as an internet service provider, also in telecoms. And I remember the early days when internet first came. So many small businesses don't want to carry a risk of data leaving their environment, any form of data, because there's no classification of the data itself. So they take that strategic approach. Anything that is going to give them a risk, they're going to block, instead of saying, you know what, let me understand what I can or cannot share, and then go through a plan process of training their employees so that they are aware, because outside of AI itself, they still have the data related issues, if especially if you have quite a number of customers. So I think that's one of the areas that can the CCGI can actually do, and along with the other partners, so that to raise that awareness, because really and truly, that business eventually over a period of time will go to business, and we don't want that. So I mean, in our field, we try to bring everybody along. But what I was referring to in the what I put in the chat is that the board, as a director myself, I need to understand what's the political implications, especially if my company is getting big, or it's already big already. What is the economic, not only for internal but external, which is number two. What is the social impact? We all talk about social responsibility now, and then we're also looking at the technological part that's coming along. What else is needed? Will it give me an edge, especially if I'm into development or new solutions? Can I bring out new services? So once they can have this understanding map in their particular mind, looking at those risks and the opportunities and so forth, then you want to ask, what do I need to do to enable this strategically? Which committees do we need to enable or make sure that resources are there, financial resources, to have AI experts that coming online, AI governance certified AI experts and governance persons coming online, legal and etc. And then when all that is finished, how can we monitor that risk? How can we see that what we are doing is actually working? What do those KPIs look like? And one of the things that I see that needs to come out of this whole conference, is a wonderful conference, is we are looking at AI in bits and pieces, but the really true nuance of everything is, can I trust this AI? What are those principles? List them out. What are those principles? Do we have a gas on them? And then how can we make sure that in our development, in our deployment of AI tools or AI itself,
agents was talked about. It could be software using AI to enhance it. It could be financial reporting, whatever it is. And then also its utilization. And I think that's really the main theme is the principles, governing those principles, understanding the risks associated with those principles, and make sure you have some form of continuing program that continue to analyze and improve it as we all go after as we go after to either do more business, interact with more international partners, seek new markets, etc. I know that's a mouthful, forgive me, but thanks.
All good. Thanks so much, Edward. So let me jump across to Shawn. So Shawn, all
Right.
yours.
So thanks, Janelle and Edward. Quite an interesting input there, because when you look at the principles that should govern AI usage, I think in some cases it should be wide. And again, this is why collaboration is needed across the region, because when you look, for example, Jamaica in terms of data privacy and passing a data privacy law that you cannot use the customer data to sell to them or to reach out to them in any form or anything. Those are some of the ways that like a body, whether this body is a regulatory body or whether this body is a governmental body, is trying to protect the consumer and protect the customers in this day and age of AI. But it is going to be dependent on a lot of things. It's going to be dependent on the level of transparency that you want to achieve from it, the level of accountability to be achieved from it, the jurisdiction that you're looking into, something that are okay in some countries are not okay in some countries and regions. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So is it that we want to create a global framework that governs these AI, let's use ChatGPT, for example, or is it that you're going to take on ownership and create a local governance policy procedure that governs how it's used in your organization, in your country? And it goes back to the one of your earlier points and the point that Gail made as well regarding the use of AI, the fear of use of AI, right? Because if my competitors are already using AI, they're using AI to automate, they're using AI to gather intelligence, they're using AI to enhance their product, enhancing their brand and everything else. And in some instances, that should result in a cost of production being lower, and then them may be in a position to offer the same product at a lower price. If I don't take advantage of AI, then that is going to leave me behind. And as I said, 2 years from now, I may not be a viable entity. Like that meme that is going around where the CFO said to the CEO, "Why are we spending so much money training these people? What if they leave?" And the CEO's response was, "What if we don't and they stay?" This is a double-edged sword that we're looking at with AI. If you don't use it, you're going to be left behind. And if you lose it, you run the risk of that we're talking about. So we have to, ownership must be taken at every level. And in a like Trinidad, for example, especially in the telecom space where we gather a lot of information from our users, TAT, which is the Telecoms Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, has a huge role to play in this. They have to be governing it to a point where they help to establish guidelines and rules of engagement of how we engage it and how we use it. So it's not a single body that will dictate how it is governed and how it's used. It's a collaborative effort between private, public, and everybody within this ecosystem. But it is not as simple. And as Brian said, policies, governance, rules, and laws. You ever wonder why there is a do not drink on the gas container? Because somebody drank it before and now they had to put that on it. So we have to learn, right? So as part of it, it is a continuous learning. What we need to do as industry experts and industry leaders and people within certain industry is to ensure that we're staying on top of it. And we are, go back to that software development that was spoke about earlier. We have to make governance to keep reiterating, improving, building version 1, version 1.1, version 1.0. And each version is an improvement and something that we learned from somebody drinking the gas, right? So I'm oversimplifying it just to make the point that it's continuous, as I said.
Right. Thanks a lot, Shawn. Kristoff.
Yes, hi everyone again. So Edward mentioned the socioeconomic aspects of this. And I always like to think of where AI is now, what it can do, what it is doing, and what the next version is going to be able to do. And when we look at the developments in hardware, which AI is built on, Google, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, all working on quantum computing. When that kind of hardware is applied to AI and its ability to now think more than just generating, the issues that we have in the socioeconomic space of any country, whether it be a first world nation, a third world nation, a developing nation, the kind of solutions that this would be able to provide both businesses, governments towards implementing, we will now have more accountability to hold our decision makers and our leaders having that information and having that ability to access certain recommendations and solutions towards making our lives better. So in the socioeconomic aspect, currently I would say it's more about trying to do better and more looking ahead. It's about actually being better in ways and means that you never know that you can. In regards to using AI for a better socioeconomic aspect, when COVID hit, uh, um, um, I can't remember the pharmaceutical company, one of them who came out first with a trial aspect. They utilized AI first, as I mentioned, scenario. They utilized it to help create the genomes and everything and test and see which formula would be most applicable for actual testing to move ahead. So that's just an example of what I'm saying, what could come next.
Right. Thanks a lot, Kristoff. So let me just jump to there's one other comment in the chat that I would just share with the panel, and of course you all could share your thoughts on it. So this is from Novak. One challenge of using these models that were trained in one context is applicability in other contexts. I heard someone else mention this. I believe it was Dr. Sharp. So without going too much into the data that feeds the models, some generative AI outputs would certainly be relevant to us in the Caribbean, but not all. That cultural nuance is incredibly powerful. Augmented models may help. So if anyone on the panel would like to contribute to that,
Right.
and
If I may, sorry.
sure, Kristoff, you want to go first, or Shawn? Shawn, all right,
Right,
Shawn.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. So if I may, right, a few months ago, I was on a AI in HR panel discussion similar to this seminar, and the point that is being made here about that Caribbean nuance, if I may call it that, and the cultural nuance was one of the major discussion point. And when we look at like CXC, for example, we like if not 100%, 99% of the countries within the region, Caribbean, sit CXC exams, and there isn't at that point, and I don't think to today there is a that tool or that AI solution that will help with like CXC and help with that nuance. Now, we're talking about cultural nuance as well. We also have to keep top of mind that we are operating in a global economy. We are operating in an economy where we are operating, competing with countries, companies across the world. And we look at the diversity of many countries or many companies, even in the region, it's a lot more diverse than we used to think. So is the cultural nuance, while relevant today, how relevant will the cultural nuance be tomorrow?
Good points. All right, Kristoff, you want to?
Yes, and in regards to the cultural nuances that the current language models were built on, again, as I said before, it was built based on our information and our biases. For example, Gemini, where a few months or late last year, was giving generative images that were inaccurate of whom it was portraying. So we have to ensure that persons of color, persons of different ethnicities, races, have to be involved and have to have a say and have their context be put into this so that our culture, whether it be Caribbean, African, Indian, Caucasian, whatever it may be, is accurately represented. So it is a concern, but it has to be identified as an issue firstly for it to be addressed, because within video games, a lot of gamers we like to rage out because a company would release a game, whether it be Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk, and these games have these bugs in the beginning. Why did I pay $70 to use this game and look at these bugs, a man with a T action? But nothing is perfect. We don't live in utopia. Everything will have problems and everything will be addressed. So, but we have to ensure that we are part of that solution. Complaining is one aspect of it, but we have to approach it with a solution aspect mindset.
All right, thanks, Kristoff. Brian?
Yeah, so what I want to say about the models that being trained, all the models that we see is actually being trained by a human being, and most of the training is happening in Africa, right? So we have these African people that are sitting behind a computer, right, and they have all these images, and they are just labeling everything and giving a descriptive answer to AI. So if we look at it at a bias standpoint, is that all the logic is actually coming from Africa, if I should make a conclusion like that, because it's those people and are making the decision for AI to learn. And what the scary part of this is that I even saw that people without a medical background were labeling X-ray images. And that was scary when I saw it, because if you as a medical doctor, you're using AI to help a patient, and you take an X-ray, you put it in ChatGPT or in any language model, and you ask it to analyze that data, how accurate is that? So I think based on the contextual side, we need to take we need to be cautious in how we use these models and how we train it, and the most important thing is that we should move to make a combination of the cloud version of the language model and the local LLMs that you build for your company or the medical sector, right? And have medical doctors analyze those data to feed it into AI, not human beings. So bias, there will be always bias, but the accuracy of data sometimes, that is where hallucination happens within AI. So there are a lot of dangerous things that's going on in the AI space, and I just wanted to point that out. And regarding the cultural aspect of it, we as a Caribbean country, we don't have data. Nobody has data, right? So, and if we have data, it's like maybe 0.00001% of the world's data. So if we want to contribute to that, we should start creating data. And data can be taking your phone, snap a picture, and feed it into AI and give it a description of, hey, I took this picture at this and this place, learn from it. So that is how we can contribute and give it more context. And then that is how we can do that.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Brian. So we probably have about 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to, say again, thank you to the panelists for your excellent contributions, to the audience for sharing your comments and engaging in the discussions. It was truly very important for you all to do that. And, we really, I think we all learned a lot here. The biggest takeaway for me is that, okay, in order to maintain to stay on top of this thing, agility is needed, and treat it just like you would treat a software project or even managing AI projects, right? So I think there's a saying: think big, start small, iterate often. So it's certainly, I love the analogy that Brian made about the fire. There are always going to be unknowns in anything that man creates. So let's try to embrace it, understand its limitations, understand that there are some things we're not going to know right away, and really respond by, with an agile approach, so that we could stay on top of these things and, create as we learn. All right. So I'm going to now just invite each of the panel members, just if you all could just share your final thoughts as we wrap up, and then I'll hand over to Kamala. So Shawn, we could probably start with you.
Thanks again. In terms of final comment, it has been quite a interesting and engaging conversation or discussion. I like, as I said, the points that came out. I did some learning and I made some notes. All right, but from me, in terms of final comment, it's around what role do we play in this? And I say we, those of us who are interested enough to be in the discussion, the CCGI leaders, managers within the different sectors. What is our role? What do we want our role to be? When some of us are older, and AI and ChatGPT is everywhere and everybody using it. What role do we want to say we played in that? What contribution did you make to that? How did you adapt to it initially? Because whether you want to or not, it is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So we just need to get with it. And agile governance is keeping up with that rate, that adoption rate or usage rate across the technologies. It is here to stay. We need to get with the program. Thanks.
Thanks, Shawn. Kristoff, you want to?
Yes, firstly, thank you to the CCCI for this opportunity. It was a great discussion, and I look forward to the rest of the week and other discussions relating to AI and how it is used in governance. Closing for me is that we need to always adapt and repeat. Adapt and repeat. That's agility right there. And if we don't adapt and we don't repeat, we're going to be left behind. As I said, you need to run just to stay in the same place, but you need to run twice as fast to keep ahead of what is going on. And that is where you will either leapfrog your competitors. That is where you will create innovation. And as a Caribbean region, we are usually overlooked in innovation, and we need to give that priority, and we need to be able to compete with the rest of the world, which we are more than capable of. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kristoff. And Brian?
Yeah, what I want to say is agility in governance isn't about moving recklessly. It's more about building decision system that can evolve without breaking. And whether you're leading a ministry or a startup or an enterprise, your ability to respond to technological change is now a competitive advantage. But response require structure, and structure must be designed to flex, not to hold, if it makes sense, right? For me, the mission is very simple. We should let's stop trying to force new technology into old system, and we should try and let us build new system worthy of the technology we're actually creating right now. So that's my final word of
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brian, Kristoff, and Shawn. And now, Kamla, I'll hand over to you to bring us home.